And welcome back to Nerdly Presents Off the Reel. This is an off-the-reel review of the movie Mexicali, a movie that Jesse V. Johnson, director of Debt Collectors, Avengements, Triple Threat, Accident Man, he's the director of them. He's been screaming about this movie. Turns out he wrote this movie, which is really cool, but then passed on the directing duties to LaFontaine. Predominantly been in stunts for the most part. This is him moving into directing with Mexicali, because that is happening more and more where your stunt guys are moving into your action direction. And then he brings in a superstar leading man, the likes of Bren Foster. I say superstar, he is just kind of hitting the mark now, but he's definitely going to be one of those leading men that is going to flourish as he continues to do these kind of throwbacks to the 90s and early 2000 action movies. We're going to get into the movie in a quick hot second, but please do, first of all, go over to nerdly.co.uk, your favourite British home for all of your news, reviews and exclusive interviews, where we like to cover everything from the big budget to the low budget to the no budget, with a special keen interest on the lower end of the scale. Now, there is a budget to this movie, but it's definitely lower budget. When I talk about this movie, I'll be getting to the plot of this movie, then I'll talk about the cast and crew of this movie, then I'll get into what I did and didn't like, before hitting you with my Nerdly Presents Off the Reel review rating. That is my rating, not the rating of Nerdly as a whole, but you can take my rating to the bank because I'm the most important person. Also, do hit that like, hit that subscribe, and ding that notification bell. I'm well aware that I don't always say that in these videos. I kind of just hope that's a given because everybody always says that in their videos. So let's get into LaFontaine's Mexicali. Ex-fighter Joe helps run his partner Estrella's farm in Mexico. After taking underground fights to support workers, he's forced to defend them and Marco when Chavez's gang attacks them on the road. It's not reinventing the wheel, it's not doing anything massively new. We've seen movies like this before, but yes, we do meet Joe, who's played by Bren Foster. Now, a little while ago at the Romford Film Fest, I was talking to one of my buddies down there who works in the cinema, and he schooled me on who Bren Foster is. He says, check out Life After Fighting. Threadbare plot, there is a bit of a plot there to it, but really you're just looking at the fight scenes. He's like, you will love what this guy does. Quick, how fast, how hard hitting this guy's scenes were in the movie, and of course he's like all the way through the movie, and the camera work in it was just excellent. So yeah, I was down for a bit of Bren Foster. As we start the movie, he's living with Estrella, who's played by Tania Raymonde, who you might remember as Russo's daughter in Lost. Remember the TV show Lost? I loved Lost. I was a big fan of Lost, but that's where I remembered her from. So he's like working this avocado farm with her. He goes out one day, he's doing a bit of shopping with one of the kids that works with him, and then they kind of like get involved in a little kerfuffle. They do leave though, and they get chased down by the gangsters, and they end up crashing their vehicle. And after they crash the vehicle, the gangsters get out and come to try and kill them, and then Joe takes them all out. They have to bury them out in the wilderness. And then that's like kind of done with, but a few days later, this guy comes to the house called Baptiste, and Baptiste is kind of like, okay, this happened, we know it happened, you know it happened, we're not really going to talk about it, just give us your farm. So Baptiste wants the farm. So then that kind of like spirals into a whole nother thing. They're going to try and run away, but that's not going to work because they're going to kidnap Estrella, and then he has to come back and basically rescue her. That's kind of the plot of the movie. Again, as I say, it's not something you haven't seen before. Mixed in with all that, you do have at the start of the movie where he's taking on some underground fights because of course he's this amazing fighter and he's just going to take everyone on, and it's not going to be hard for him. So there is that. And then that does play into the movie a little bit later on where he has to do the same kind of thing again. There's going to be some awesome fight sequences, some really cool choreographed stunt work, and that's going to be your movie. Let's get into the cast and crew. And again, starting with Bren Foster. Like, when he's doing the punchy kicky stuff, he's absolutely bloody phenomenal. Like, he's really, really good in these scenes. Clearly knows how to fight, clearly knows how to choreograph his own fights, but here you also have a director who comes from a stunty background, so that's working in their favour as well. I do like the fact that they've let somebody else write the story here. I love that for Bren Foster because then it gives him a vehicle to really shine in. That's what I loved about Bren Foster in this movie, because we get to see how good he potentially could be. He's very serviceable when he's doing dialogue, he's very serviceable in the story beats, but really for me personally, and I know this is strange to say, I was kind of just waiting for him to throw hands, and that was the fun parts of the movie. Tania Raymonde plays his wife, girlfriend, Estrella, and again, she's fine. She's absolutely brilliant. Doesn't have a massive great deal to do. We do get this really cool montage like halfway through the movie or 3/4 of the way through the movie where he's teaching her how to fight. He's teaching her how to wield a weapon, teaching her how to like sort of like stab someone if she needs to. I like that because she does come across quite badass in those scenes. Not a massive great deal to do, but what she does do is excellent. And when we do get to those moments where she does have to wield a weapon and she does have to shoot people or stab people or whatnot, we get some really, really friggin' cool scenes with her, especially sat on the back of like a Jeep. I'm not going to say much more else about it, but when we get that, it's like, damn. One of the characters that I kind of thought I wasn't going to like is Baptiste, and he's played by Plutarco Haza. I've probably totally messed that name up. I know I have. Plutarco Haza, that's what I'll say. He plays Baptiste. Really kind of like this gangster that comes in to sort of take over the farm, but actually quite funny with it. You think of like Christoph Waltz at the start of Inglourious Bastards. Like, I genuinely just kind of thought, this guy's cool. I really like this guy. Is he a baddie? Is he a goodie? I don't know right now, but I'm willing to take the road with him. And I was intrigued by his character. I wanted to know more about his character. And that's because the actor really does sell it. And of course, his second in command that's working with him is Ruthie, played by Kris Van Damme. And yes, Jean-Claude Van Damme's son. That is absolutely cool. In this kind of throwaway movie from back in the action 90s, we have got a Van Damme. We've got Kris Van Damme. And he has a couple of good fight sequences with Bren Foster. I don't know what I'm trying to say about Kris Van Damme, but yeah, he's very, very good. And the scenes that he's in, not a massive great deal, but the scenes that he's in are very good. I was really happy to see a Jesse V. Johnson frequent collaborator and somebody that I just love seeing in movies, Louis Mandylor as Sue. Now, I think I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I believe he's reprising his role from The Debt Collector and The Debt Collectors. You know, those two movies that he did with Scott Adkins. I believe he's playing that Sue. So this is cool because it could end up being part of that universe. And I got excited at the thought of Scott Adkins, Louis Mandylor, Bren Foster, all being in a movie together and smashing out the park. Because yeah, I love me some Louis Mandylor. And in this movie, he's only in a couple of scenes, but he's absolutely just Louis Mandyloring it right to the hill. And he's just being what we always hope him to be, what we'd expect him to be, and what we love him to be. So that's pretty much it for your cast and crew. Although I will say that Luc LaFontaine as a director in his first movie, moving out of the stunts and all that, I'm sure he had a lot to do with the stunt choreography in this movie as well. But here he is, stepping out of the stunt limelight and becoming a director. And yeah, this is the kind of movie I would hope he would make. It's just all out. It's all out action when it wants to be. They pump the brakes for a little bit of storyline to get us to the next section. Bren Foster gets some time to flex some acting chops. It's everything I would hope that he would do with this movie. What I didn't like about the movie, there are parts of it that it kind of just slows down a little bit, and I didn't really need it to be this slow. It's not that long of a movie as is, but I feel like we could have just went from piece to piece a little bit quicker. You know, like you have this scene at the start with the underground fight, and that I kind of just thought, this is really cool, and then we absolutely pump the brakes, and there is a little while before we get to our next kind of fight, which is a shame. But I get it, you've got to add those story beats in there. So that's kind of what they're doing, and I did enjoy that. But yeah, that was my only real criticism of it. I do love the fight sequences. I do believe in a lot of these movies you can tell when they are slowing down the fight choreography. I don't think Bren Foster does that. I think he just goes for it and he just is as quick as he is, and the camera just has to keep up with it. But at no point does it feel like, okay, I'm missing something here. How did that punch get into that punch? How did that kick get into that kick? I feel like it's fluid motion. I feel like the camera is following them around the way it should be. At some points you really feel like you're inside that fight and it's down and dirty and gritty and you're about to get punched in the face. That's some of my favourite thing about choreography like this. I love the fact that it's not overly serious. I've seen lower budget movies like this where it's like really serious, really downbeat, really downhearted, and we're just going to show you the grit and the realism of it all. This film definitely at times, although it is a serious film, definitely at times has got a little bit of a tongue in its cheek, and I like that. The introduction of Louis Mandylor later on, the introduction of the character Baptiste, kind of keep it a little bit lighthearted, to kind of keep the comedy moving, especially when you get sort of a little bit of a face turn towards the end from Baptiste, and I really quite liked that comedy sprinkled throughout this movie. But then again, that's just another sign of Jesse V. Johnson on script duties. Like, Avengement is quite a serious movie, quite a brutal movie, but it also has a ton of heart and a ton of comedy, which is what makes it one of my favourite Scott Adkins films. And another thing I liked, strangely enough for a movie like this, the score. The score for this film's really cool. Like, the action beats, the songs, the music over the top, the sound, the punching and the kicking sound effects. Like, I don't know, like, everything just sang to me in this film, so there is that as well. So let's just get into my final Nerdly Presents Off the Reel review rating. I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 5. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It does have issues, it does have problems, but for every little thing I didn't like, there's one or two more things that I really did like. So I am going to give it a 4 out of 5, and I do genuinely want to see what Luc LaFontaine does next. I'm always going to be watching what Jesse V. Johnson does next. I'm interested to see how Bren Foster can use this kind of new status that he's starting to garner and he's starting to get and move forward in that realm. I would love to see Debt Collectors 3 with Bren Foster, Scott Adkins, Louis Mandylor. Give me that movie all the live long day. Or if you just want Scott Adkins and Bren Foster to just face off against each other, I would also kind of love that. All in all, Mexicali is a really good film. You could do worse on a Saturday night. It's a fun throwback to the 90s, the early to mid 2000s, those movies that they just don't make anymore. 4 out of 5. Please do check it out. I think you'll enjoy it if you like your punchy, kicky goodness, because it's just a ball-breaking good time. Please do check out Mexicali. 4 out of 5 from me. Do go over to the website, nerdly.co.uk, your favourite British home for all of your news, reviews and exclusive interviews. Do give me a like, a subscribe, share, ding that notification bell. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you thought of it. Am I talking absolute shite? Do you totally agree with me? Put it down below in the comments and we'll talk about it from there. We'll keep that conversation going. But for now, thank you so much for checking out this review. Please do go and check out Mexicali. And if I don't see you through the week, I'll see you in the cinema.